Alrighty, well, hello on this beautiful July 4, and let's do another tutorial. I have a couple of videos or images that you may have seen here. These are done with the latest, still being developed, version 9.5. And obviously some improved specular lighting, reflections, some mirror tool here that's actually been around since version, what was it, 6 I think, or 5. But some great stuff you can do here with the new 3D designer, including some animations. Oh, that one's a recording from the prior video. Let's go and have a look at the following here. I took some pictures just about a half an hour ago. We have a unusual formation in the sky. It's called clouds. Yes, we don't see those a lot in Southern California, and it's a kind of a tropical one. This one in particular caught my attention because it seems like there's a little bit of streams. Let me increase the contrast. This is actually inside of one of my favorite image viewers, the Irfan view. And so what I'll do is I'll Control C to copy that, and then go over here, Control V to paste it into Howler, and I'll place it right there. Now this is a very high definition image, or fairly high definition, and but one thing you'll see, let's do the following first. Let's go bring it down a little bit, resample it to a little bit less. Let's go half the size. Don't spend too much time on that. And let's see what dimensions we have. Maybe we can do that even one more time. This is just for experimental use. So let's do 1280. That gives us almost 720. Okay, so let's do also a little bit of dynamic expansion. There you go. Okay, so we have some clouds that are kind of being smeared away here to the right. And that to me looks like a nice elevation map for sand dunes. Basically sand dunes where the wind is blowing to the right. And so what I want to do is actually load that into Puppy Ray for the ray traced way, or the 3D designer, just to see what it looks like. Let's do this first. Let's go store this, keep a snapshot of that, and then change the colors. Let's see what happens if we invert this. Since it's bluish, it might go into an orange color, having some red and some green. Let's go invert it, and well, kind of. It wasn't a full blue. Inverting it, dark blue goes into a very bright orange, barely orange here, really more on the, a little bit of a tint there. But this we could certainly use as a color map, so let's store that one as well. Or we could perhaps try a few other things like rotating the colors. Let's swap the channels, that's not it. Let's go a few others. Roll the channels and do that twice. There, roll the channels. There's a little bit of a reddish purple almost tint. Let's do that. Let's try that and store this. And then actually really copy it down into the swap buffer. So we go into, where is it there? Copy to the swap image. And then we go back to our original here. We really need just a grayscale of that one. So let's go convert to grayscale here. And say something like expose it to a lens so that we can see whatever is blue goes the darkest, whatever is not blue will be bright. And we can perhaps expand the dynamic range some more, so we know we have somewhere there we have some black pixels. And now we'll use that. Let's go store this and use that as the elevation map in, where do we go here with that? That would be under filters, transform 3D designer. All right, and obviously we have a little bit of elevation here that's still got some bumpiness to it. We can increase the filter here. We can change the lighting. This is one where we might want to also have a little bit of shadows cast. So let's enable the ray traced shadows. You see the shadows here now in real time as you turn this around, accelerated on the GPU. And I'm not even on a very fast GPU system here, but if you reduce the elevation, you can see the shadows getting longer. And if you rotate it around, you get some nice play with the shadows here. So let's go and rotate the other light also. There's a bit of a bluish tint that we can give to this light and bring it in from this side, whereas this one maybe we want to have a little bit of a reddish tint and have it cast the shadows like so, perhaps not too bright. You know what, that's not red enough. Let's give it something like this. There. Okay, there you go. And a little bit higher, and a little bit farther away or closer. Probably farther away, so we have really a reason to expect to see those shadows. And then rotate it. So I want the lights to come in from the side, from the far left. And let's see, what else can we do to give this some nice visual realism. So one thing I'll do is add the extra material here, extra options for, let's see, what do we want to do here? Elevation, oh yeah, erosion and creating the texture. So now the color we have right now is just the object color. Another option would be from the image itself. That makes it a bit dark, but we can adjust that by increasing the light. In this case though, we could also take the color that we have from that other image, which returned kind of a bluish, reddish, purple or pink appearance. And that would be nice for some vermilion cliffs kind of coloring. The other option there is perhaps to use the create texture and replace the alpha image, the swap image, and replace it with a new one that will give it some snow caps. There you see that. Give it some gray rocks as well, and give it some greens in the valleys. And so here you can adjust also perhaps how much of that you'll see. Oh, the erosion now. Okay, so the erosion is a different parameter. Let's do that later. But here we want to also experiment with the smoothing, the amount of smoothing. Let's do that one more time here. Let's adjust where the snow goes and have the smoothing, let's see, very little of it or a lot more. Somewhere around there. And then the intensity, there you go. That will make it more look like a snow, like a winter scene. And if you give it very little smoothing, it'll be more sudden transitions. So let's see, we have ambient occlusion also that can be added. Now this, on my old graphic card, might have a little bit of glitchy behavior there at first. Just needs a couple of updates to refresh and sync everything. And then here we have now one more thing we need to do, and that's the erosion. So I'm going to enable the erosion, and you see immediately it's doing much more deformation here, and you can adjust that to say, for instance, have more rainfall or less rainfall. So if you have less of it, you get barely any erosion. It's like barely there. And if you do a lot of rainfall, you can see that it's going to take longer. It's going to think a little bit longer, but it's going to also carve out much more of that sediment or that terrain. And we can then take a look at it from different angles and see if that kind of corresponds to what we want. Maybe a little bit less on that deformation, and bring it back this way here. Something like so. There you go. Let's go and bring it to a wide angle. Let's temporarily disable the ambient occlusion. Don't need this. And let's see, we have, perhaps we need to move in a little bit. There you go. Now let's go also reduce the amount of light. This is way too bright right now. There you go. Okay, so let's focus more on that erosion. We have the amount of erosion, that's basically the displacement of the terrain, but we need to control how much of that, and that depends on a couple of things, like the amount of rainfall. So here I'm increasing the amount of rainfall to like 220, and that's just going to take a lot of time, but it's going to erase or erode much more of this here. If I reduce the maximum run length, that also can give a nice different appearance, and perhaps with that we can get, now it starts to look like wet snow. Let's give it just a little bit here on this. Let's see some other parameter, viscosity. Okay, so now we have very little viscosity on the surface. Let's give it a lot. Let's give it much higher, and it's starting to look like it's going to take a while to erode this thing. So let's go to really high values, 800, 888, And the maximum run length is going to be critical here too, so we want to adjust that a little bit. Experiment with that. Let's go to 8,000. So we now have some fairly long range there. Let's give it a little bit more on the viscosity. And one more parameter is the flatness threshold. And so I'm going to go with very little there, 1. And or as perhaps the opposite, a very high value. Let's try 9. And so all of these is a little bit of experimenting and trying things out and see if you can get to another appearance that you like better. Let's give it 22 for instance here. And I really don't know what the range is. Let's see if there's any tooltips here. Okay, right now it's calculating, but it looks like we don't have tooltips on that yet, so it's going to be important to experiment with that a little bit more. Let's see, I can see viscosity. Let's give it 3333. And the maximum run length. Yeah, now we're starting to see a little bit of creeks and rivers building here. Let's see this one. Maximum run length and rainfall. Let's go with 33. Still not enough. So let's see what happens if we make this one way higher. Oh, yep. This is taking longer. Let's go bring this down now. Okay, we got a little bit of a erosion effect here. Now the sediment, this one doesn't do much yet that I can tell. It's not, I don't think it's implemented yet, so we're still in beta on this obviously, or even pre-beta. But let's see if we can again adjust the coloring now, independent of that displacement map. So you can see now some snow melting away. You can add some smoothing. That's too much. Let's give it 5. Let's give it a little bit on there and there. So we get some interesting looking terrain coloring with a little bit of rock there. There you go. So now we have a bit more of that. So one more thing we might want to do is add some shading due to fog. So there is a fog layer here we can add. In fact, I'm going to make the background color a little bit lighter. It's dark here. I'm going to give it kind of a Martian landscape color here, something like that. And then we'll make the fog come into that. So let's bring it in until we see some of the back fog here reach the backdrop. So that way it looks like it's disappearing in the fog. And then on top of that, we can also enable the ground fog. Now there's a linear and a non-linear way. Try either one of those. And you can see perhaps even fill it in with some toxic layer of fog there and adjust that to different density levels. So a lot of different controls here now, and all this done pretty much in real time as you explore generating, moving the light source around for different shadows, still doing these in real time here thanks to the GPU helping. And let's say I want very long shadows there. What's beautiful with these long shadows is that it's going to give you a feedback or a clue as to where you can put the light source. If you decide then, okay, let's go render that with anti-aliasing on. Let's see if we want to have perhaps a little bit more detail showing. Keep it at about 20 or 30 here. There you go. No, it's too much. Let's give it about 50. I think that's the default. Okay, okay that. And so this is going to render now. There you go. And now we can add, first of all, store this like that. And so we have here was the original elevation map. We're looking up this area here, but that's high, is now the high mountain back there. Right? That's the high elevation on the grayscale. And then here we have the colored rendering with the elevation map used. And then what we need to do is finish this with, let's see over here, the gradients, lens flares, special effects. Let's right click here and select the lens flares. And I always like to say, you know, keep it simple. Let's not make it too complex. I mean, you know, it's tempting to put one of those there with the big lenses or lens flares, reflections, and it's cool. You know, sometimes that's fine. But also in a desolate planet, something like this, a little bit more nüchtern, as we would say in German, a little bit simpler and less intense, might do the trick just fine. Something like this. There you go. And you know, if you need another star, I mean, you know, nothing prevents you from saying we are on a dual star system, on a planet with 2 stars, so you can always add another little one here, right? Small enough that it doesn't actually cast shadows, but it does get the attention. All right, so thanks for watching this little short on July 4, and I would like to call this one here Independence of Expensive Software. Of course, there's much more to it. We definitely are just starting to see some of the great new features in version 9.5 coming, and stay tuned for more. And thanks for waffling and howling.